Welcome into Views from the Sideline. Today it is August 21st, 2018, and already we are having some technical difficulties.
Great start as usual.
Great start as usual, it's just what we do around here. Let's see if I can get the audio up one more time. It's not happening. So let's get into the show here, guys. What's up?
I'll edit it in at the beginning, and nobody will ever know. But you said it, so we broke it, so people know.
I'm breaking the fourth wall, people. Sorry.
This is our thing. We're not the perfect show.
No.
We're a real show.
We're
We're the realist.
No, that's just you.
Quote unquote the realist.
I let Joey take that nickname, but
Thank you, appreciate
today
it.
on the show, we've been doing kind of a stretch of a couple weeks here. We've been doing themed episodes as of late. I believe our first one was our top 10 favorite players of all time.
Pistons.
Top 10 favorite Pistons of all time. Then it's top 10 favorite players of all time. And then it was top 5 favorite teams.
Yep.
And now, number 4.
The most heated debate of them all.
I feel like this is going to be a tough one. Top 5 greatest
Greatest
players of all time, in our opinions.
Whew.
Now, if we have time at the end of the show, we'll talk about players that maybe missed the cut. But we're going to jump right into the top 5 because there's going to be a lot of discussion, I feel like, within the top 5 from all of us. And we want to know what you guys think, too. Who's in your top 5? Leave a comment on the video. We'll go through some of the comments next week and touch on that. But I want to start with you, Joey. There's not much of an intro here except for top 5 greatest players of all time. It's a lot of pressure, but I feel like you're ready for it.
And we're starting off with a banger. So my whole list is kind of who dominated each era of basketball. And this first guy is, I feel bad putting him at number 5, which is
I think I already know who you picked.
It's kind of how it works when you do this top 5 kind of stuff of greatest of all time. And you have to take into so many things into account. And this guy dominated the early 2000s and somewhat of the late 2000s. Kobe Bryant.
And number 5
is number 5 for me.
Good pick.
Now, a lot of people want to argue that he's up higher, and I even debated it myself. But after thinking about it, just looking at the guys ahead of him and what they did for the game as well took into more account. And I don't know, Kobe's career tailed off, which you'll see a lot of these guys kind of did.
Well, his career tailed
That's
off.
the reason, though.
Yeah, because of the Achilles tear.
Right. But
before that Achilles tear, he was averaging 26 points per game.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. There's unfortunate things, and the other guys ahead of him that I have the same thing. But I think it just comes down to him being with Shaq for a while, and
you feel like he was maybe carried early on in his career?
Not necessarily carried, but it just...
Joe, you're full of hot takes here. Why don't you just be real with the people? Why don't you say Shaq carried Kobe to 3 titles?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, when it gets to...
So that is what you're saying.
When you get to the top 5...
You don't force Joey into hot takes, okay?
And
it's a natural thing.
You get into this top 5, and it gets so nitty-gritty of what to take off and what reasons. And I guess that's part of my reasoning.
Okay, that's all I want.
But I guess the guys, like, there's a couple guys ahead of him that have the same problem, so I don't know. But Kobe just felt like number 5. Some of his numbers just seem stat boosted. His percentages weren't that great, field goal percentages. A lot of the times he took a lot of attempts, and
I think
he
later
came out,
in his career.
Yeah, and he came out with a high point totals, but his percentage wasn't great. He was never a great 3-point shooter. So it came down to efficiency. Kobe Bryant's efficiency wasn't always there. But the reason he has to be in the top 5 is his killer instinct. Nobody can take that away from him. He might be the most clutch player.
No, that's Michael.
He might be.
No, that's Michael. But now I can't really... The thing that stinks about you going first is I can't pick apart this pick so early because I don't know who you have in front.
Right.
I really want to...
You'll pick it apart, trust me.
Because... To me,
I'm sure we both will.
Yeah.
Kobe...
Because this was hard for me to put him at 5.
I almost put him at 5 in mine, but I couldn't do it. I feel like, spoiler alert, that's a little too low for what Kobe did for the NBA, what he did for the Lakers franchise. And another little interesting bit here, too. Think about all the all-time greats who have ever played this game. And regardless of who's in your top 5, we'll say the top 10 greatest players of all time, at least 4 of them played for the LA Lakers franchise. or is going to play for the LA Lakers franchise. And Kobe got 5 rings for that franchise. I don't know. I can't go into it so much yet because I don't know who you picked ahead of him. So I'll say as long as he's in your top 5, that's a good thing. But there is an argument for him to be a lot higher.
You could put all Lakers in this top 5.
You could.
But you can't do that.
No, you can't.
No, you
can.
can't. No, you can't.
No, you
You
can't.
can.
You can't.
You can leave Michael Jordan out of your top 5.
Some people don't like Michael. I know
There's no-
people that don't like Michael.
They don't deserve to be talking about basketball.
Yeah, I don't
if
know.
he's outside of the top 5 greatest of all time.
Yeah, even if you don't like him.
Of course, he should be in the list, but I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Anyway, Malik, go ahead.
So my number 5 is from Coney Island, Sebastian. No, I was playing.
Sebastian Telfair.
This is a respect pick for me. I almost put him out, but at the end of the day, I have to put him in this list. He's the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You almost left Kareem off?
I almost left Kareem off.
Wow.
I tried to push harder for some other guys that
Really?
were more of our generation.
Now
but
what was the reasoning of maybe keeping Kareem off? Why was he just on that border for you?
I couldn't put him up higher because there were other players I needed to put higher. So it was going to be 5 or off the list for me. And I considered Tim Duncan for my 5. But after comparing the two, you have to put Kareem on the list. I mean, the numbers he put up in his career, just in Milwaukee, he averaged 34 and 16 in his 3rd season, 31 and 16 in his 2nd season. He played for almost 20 years. He played at a high level almost his entire career until maybe the last few years in LA. But still, when they got to the playoffs and the finals, he was able to rev it up and play at a high level when they needed him to. He has the patent sky hook. It's known as the most
Lethal.
unstoppable
Yeah.
shot in NBA history. I mean,
Let me just run down the list here for you. For a guy that you actually gave some thought of leaving him off. There was a shot that he was actually going to be left off.
I couldn't put him up higher. I couldn't put him in any higher
Okay.
than 5.
All right. To break it down for everybody, he's a Hall of Famer,
First
Not-
ballot, yeah.
19-time All-Star,
One of the greatest to ever play the game.
2-time scoring champion, and like Malik said, the NBA scoring champion, 4-time block champ, 6-time NBA champion, 15 times All-NBA, 11 times All-Defense, Rookie of the Year, 2-time Finals MVP, and a 6-time NBA regular season MVP.
Which is why he made my top 5. That list is unbelievable.
That took a while to
He made
get
my
through.
top 5.
That's
His
an early
his sheet is amazing.
It's an early
amazing.
shocker for me. Kareem being at 5.
I thought it'd be
and
a
I
little
think
controversial.
I think Joey doesn't even have him in his top 5.
He's in my top 5.
I'll tell you right now, he's not in my top 5. And now,
Yeah,
this is where it comes
gonna
into
be-
play.
This is gonna be
And I
weird.
talked to Malik.
Why?
I talked to Malik about this before you were late. And
Shocker.
my big thing for these guys of the 70s era and before.
He played 70s into the
No,
90s.
I know. He played for a long
20
time.
years.
Yeah.
90.
And he's right on the edge of my top 5. But I just think so many of these guys were, and it's unfortunate too, because like guys like Kareem and Wilt, and Bill
I don't
Russell,
think you can put Kareem and Wilt in the same category.
I think you can because there's
No. Wilt played against way less of talent.
I
There's
think
that big-
Kareem in the 70s didn't have the greatest talent. The
He still won, but he
the
still won
greatest-
it.
The best players in the NBA at the time were on Kareem's team in the 70s.
Wilt
He
was his
still-
only competition really in the 70s.
He still played at MVP levels in the 80s to 90s, in the
Right.
80 to 90 period, where there was Larry Bird, where there
Yeah.
was Isaiah Thomas, where there was Joe Dumars, where there was, I should not have put Joe Didi in there, where there was Michael Jordan.
His last year was 88, so he didn't play until the 90s, but he was 2 years away. His last
thought
year
it was-
his last year was the 88-89 season.
Yeah, the 89
Yeah.
season, 89, yeah.
And he got to ride with the Showtime Lakers though. And
He didn't
I
just
don't-
ride with them.
I don't want to take that away from him necessarily, but when you have also one of the greatest point guards of all time to be on your team, definitely helps.
If it wasn't for Kareem, Magic doesn't have all the rings he has.
I don't know. That's
If it wasn't for Scotty, Michael
hard.
doesn't have his rings.
hard.
I
to-
know.
I mean,
but
you could make
that
that
stuff
argument
is so
for
hard to
every
say.
single
That-
great player.
In each of those finals, there were certain performances that Kareem put on that single-handedly won games. Like Kareem was a huge
Kareem
part
knocked down the
Yeah.
two big free throws to win them the 88 championship against the Pistons, where there wasn't a foul.
When they said Kareem was old and done, he went into Boston and completely ripped them apart. I think it was 86 or 87.
Mhm.
Yeah, without him, I think Magic would still have championships, but not as many as he has.
Yeah. No, I just think that part of his early career and some of those early championships with like the Bucks and stuff is just a hindrance to the era and not him as a player necessarily, but that's just why he didn't make my top 5. And I know that's very controversial. Especially
Clearly.
with who is coming up. Somewhat.
But
If we have listeners over 40 or over 50, they're going to be really mad with this list. They're going to be pretty upset.
I don't know.
I'm interested to see where you guys
I'm pretty
stand with
sure
this.
most people over 50 put Wilt in the top 3, which people in our generation don't really respect Wilt.
The thing with Wilt that I think you can't really I think you can compare Wilt and Bill Russell. Those two you can compare player-wise because they played in the same era. I don't think you can compare Wilt and Kareem because Kareem played for a solid 10 years at a much higher level of basketball than Wilt ever played against. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That's just my stance on that. I totally can get the comparison between Wilt and Bill. I think Wilt and Kareem is a little far-fetched.
But I'm just saying in the 70s, there's a lot of stats that he accumulated from that era that I don't think there was the same competition as later on in his career.
I mean, in the 70s, he still has some stiff competition. He had Spencer Haywood. He had Bill Walton, who was probably the best player in the league for about 2 years.
People forget about Bill Walton. I remember I was joking last week as I was walking out of the studio. I was like, Joe, Bill Walton might be in my top 5. And you're like, what are you talking about? Bill Walton, he was... When he took basketball serious, that guy was a killer.
There were a few centers that could give Kareem problems around the time.
And he had injury issues too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and other things, but I digress. Yeah, I guess my number 5.
Let's hear it.
Irvin Magic Johnson is my number 5. And here's my reasoning. I just can't. I think Kobe is the greatest Laker of all time. Or I think Kobe past Magic is one of the greatest Lakers of all time. And like you said, Joey, when it came to Kareem tailing with Magic and whatever to win the championships and those great teams, that also played a role because I think Kobe had to go through a lot more to win his 2 championships in 2009, 2010 because he didn't have as much firepower. Yeah, you had Pau Gasol. That's not an all-time great. Like he's a really good player. He's a Hall.
Yeah. Pau Gasol.
Yeah, he's a
Pau
Hall of
Gasol's gonna
Famer.
make
Yeah,
the
he's a
Hall
Hall
of
of Famer,
Fame,
but
yeah.
he's not like a top 20 player
Yeah.
of all time, you know?
Yeah.
When Magic was playing with Kareem, who those two are top 5 players of all time.
Him and James Worthy. Yeah.
I was really hesitant to put Magic at 5 because he very well could be all the way up at 3 for me. I don't know. What's your guys' opinion of Magic Johnson?
I almost had like 4 Lakers in my top 5 because I almost added Magic and another player, but I couldn't add Magic.
Why?
I'll get to that later.
But are we going to talk about why you couldn't? We will talk. Okay.
Yeah, most definitely, and because of Kobe.
Okay.
This segues nicely. Magic Johnson's number 4 on my list.
All right, let's get into
The
that.
greatest player of all
Yeah.
time.
Okay. It's Magic. So Magic.
He's the greatest point guard of all time.
Except for Isaiah Thomas.
I like the hometown love, but come
Always.
on. Magic.
But-
It's Magic, man.
But Magic, I could have put him at 4. It was really tough. It was a toss-up between my 5 and 4. But I'll let Joey, you get into the Magic.
He's almost a career triple-double. 20 points a game. I think 11 assists, 8 rebounds, basically. And the biggest factor in this, one of the bigger factors for me, is that the way that he reignited basketball in the 80s
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable.
and brought it back from
that Magic persona made basketball completely different.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it too is the Showtime Lakers and stuff, but being like basketball kind of tailed off. And when Magic came onto the scene and he had this rivalry and just made basketball so much more popular, you had the Lakers Celtics rivalry reignited, and just basketball became such a huge sport. And then you see it tail off again somewhat in the mid-90s, and now it's coming back again. So you kind of see these ebbs and flows of the sport, but people thought basketball was going to just go away for a long time, and all of its numbers were dwindling, and then all these guys came in the 80s, and the 80s was one of the greatest eras of basketball, and Magic Johnson was definitely at the forefront of that era, and I think that plays a big part into why I put him at number 4, and then obviously his numbers speak for themselves as well. Multiple All-Star games and MVPs, leading the league in assists, championship rings, just all these things. And I mean, he has a nickname Magic. That's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, he fit perfectly with Los Angeles coming out of college. It was just a match made in heaven from the start with Magic in Los Angeles and the players that came in Showtime. I think the only other player that has played the position like him maybe is Jason Kidd.
Similar to
the
him,
way,
yeah.
the way he ran the break, and it wasn't a trick show for him. The way he played basketball, the no look passes, the behind the backs, the way he played, it was just the way he played basketball, and nobody could stop him playing like that.
And he's
for other people, it's a novelty.
He's a 6'9", 6'10" point guard.
Yeah, and at the
That's
time,
incredible.
he could do anything for you wanted. There were years where they needed more scoring from Magic, so he'd up his point per game average just because they needed it from him. The finals his rookie year, he puts up 42 and 16
Playing center.
playing
center.
in Philadelphia.
He also led the league in steals twice. So he's a solid defender as well.
Whatever you needed from Magic, he could give it to you as a 6'9" point guard in the 80s. So he was like a glitch back then. There was nothing anybody could do to handle him at that time because of his size and skill, and it showed the way he just completely mistreated
And this
teams.
thing I can see about people leaving him off their top 5 perhaps is his career was short. He
I was
didn't
gonna
have
say
the
that
most
too.
tenured career.
He played 13 seasons because of his HIV.
Right.
He sat out 4 years, which was just awful timing. The guy was
Right.
in the tail end of his prime.
He was
heading into his
still
glory
in his
days.
prime.
Yeah, he was heading into the tail end of his prime. And he came back at the age of 36, put up 14, 7, and 7. And that was along with that year, and I believe it was his sophomore season. Those are the only 2 years he was not an all-star. And you still,
if you factor that in, then he can be cut off your top 5. I tried to not take that into account.
I take that I try not to take it into account, but for him to overcome that adversity to being out of the game for 4 years, playing at the level he was playing, to come back and to at least show that he still has the skill. And, well, of course, it wasn't the Magic of old, but
It was still Magic.
you could tell it was still Magic. It wasn't like Derrick Rose blew up both knees. That's not the same Derrick Rose anymore. That Derrick Rose is gone. You know?
Right.
So Joey Magic has Magic Johnson at number 4. Your number 5 was who again?
Kobe.
5 Kobe, 4 Magic. So you don't think Kobe's the greatest Laker of all time?
Nope.
I think it's pretty much equal.
Yeah.
Well, because I remember
they both did crazy things for their team.
It's just such a great conversation. Even that Magic even calls Kobe the greatest Laker of all time, which I think is interesting. Very humble move by Magic, by the way. All right,
That's
Malik.
a PR stunt.
Yeah, just to get people to say,
Yeah.
Magic, he's such a good guy.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Malik, you're number 4.
My number 4 is my favorite player of all time, Kobe Bryant. Joey's number 5. I've talked about Kobe so much. It's hard for me to say in words how much Kobe means to me as a basketball fan and to just what he means to basketball in general. He is, and I mean this in a positive way, he is a basketball psychopath. I mean,
That's
the
very true.
way he looks at the game. He once said that after practices, he would just stand under the basket and like shoot the ball in the hoop and listen to it go through the net because that's how much he enjoyed hearing the ball go through the net. Like, this man's mental approach to basketball is just completely different. That's why he's the closest thing to Michael Jordan that we might ever see.
Because he modeled his game after him.
The game and the mentality.
The game, the mentality, and nobody else worked as hard as him.
No, but up at 3 a.m., he made other people change their work habits because of how hard he worked. And also, kind of like Jordan, he was a bully in practice. He would just completely mentally break down his teammates to make them tougher.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the video of, I think it was one of his maybe his last season, Kobe just degrading his teammates during practice because they weren't going hard enough.
I've seen
even Kobe in year it may have been 20 or 19, whatever it was, when he was at the tail end of his career, post Achilles, he wasn't playing at the Kobe Bryant level we know, and he was still heated, animated,
exactly,
giving it 110% of what he had.
There are so many videos of him going at other players in practice, but you get to the numbers. I mean, he became an all-star his second year in the NBA. And I think he was an all-star for the rest of his career until he started getting
missed
hurt.
98, 99.
Yeah, his all-star appearance numbers are ridiculous. There's the stretch in 2006 where he scored 50 points 4 times, 40, I think like 6 times. I mean, it's unbelievable what he did in that stretch in 2005 just because the talent wasn't high on his team, so he knew he had to step his game up. He averaged 35 in the 05-06 season, which I think he should have won MVP that year, but Steve Nash ended up winning it.
This is a good, like we said, it was a good sidetrack because I have Kobe at number 4 too. And like you said, Malik, and I know Joey brought it up earlier in the show, why he left Kobe off, or maybe it was right before the show, was his efficiency. Well,
he's my number 5. He's not off the list.
No, but I meant like left it off before the show.
Yeah.
It was Kobe's efficiency, but I would argue that Kobe had to be as aggressive as he was for that team to compete in any way.
But he wasn't horribly efficient, like from the efficient side, until like his last 5 years. I'm looking at the stats now. He shot over 40% from 2-point for most of his career. He was a good 3-point shooter for most of his career. What's his
3-point average, would you say?
Well, his overall average is 32%, but he had several seasons where he was over 34.
I would say that's mediocre.
Yeah, it's mediocre.
But
nowadays
he was never for a long time. He was not a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
So,
but he adjusted, and he's a top 3 clutch player of all time. Multiple
I might
MVPs.
put top 2. I mean, I think Mike 1, Kobe 2.
That really might be what it is.
I love
there are so
Joe Johnson 3.
I love the video. I'm sure you guys have seen it where they do the Kobe and Michael Jordan and they fade back and forth and they're the exact same. It's so cool.
It's crazy.
One of the coolest YouTube videos I've seen.
Also a very underrated passer and playmaker,
especially later on in his career.
Yeah, those years they won those championships. Kobe was a fantastic passer,
and they had the perfect kind of point guard or second guard next to him in Derek Fisher, who would let Kobe facilitate. Derek would kind of just run in motion or spot up in the wings, and that plays perfectly because in that 2008 to like 2013 period of time, Kobe was really not just a scorer. He was a lot more.
And also with the points of Shaq, people saying Shaq carried Kobe. Kobe averaged 30 in those playoffs along with Shaq. If Shaq averaged 32, Kobe averaged 30 in those playoffs and the finals. So there was no carrying going on. It was them two leading those teams to championships.
And one thing that put Kobe over the top of Magic, a couple things I should say, for me personally, was the duration of his career and how high of a level he played. Also, his defense. 12 times all defensive.
Yeah.
People forget about how controlling this guy was on the defensive side of the floor.
His competitive nature.
He would take the number one guy every time.
He was going to beat you, and he wasn't going to let you beat him.
Exactly. And to me, that just nudged him slightly over Magic. I'm probably a little biased because I watched Kobe too. I mean, bias plays a role in any list we're going to make. And I'll acknowledge that I think Kobe, because I watched him play, has a slight nod over Magic for me.
And that final game.
That also too.
That's the way every player wants to go out.
That might be the most emotional experience I've ever had watching.
It was a roller coaster that's one of my top 5 favorite games of all time.
That fourth quarter, I didn't know how to feel. Like my mind was completely
I still
blown.
YouTube that video to this day.
I remember watching it live.
I watched it live too, but I watched it like a week ago from today.
It's
watching
insane,
the highlights.
Man.
I think it's cool too because that game was meaningful for the Jazz. Like they were looking to make the playoffs. So for Kobe to go in there and do what he did was pretty cool.
You finished 6 of 6 in the last 3. Come on, man.
Kobe Bryant.
Ridiculous.
Talk about clutch right there. That's a clutch way to finish out your NBA career.
Yes.
All right. Let's get into number. We are already on number 3. Man.
Yeah, we are. And this one's going to be highly debated. Here
Hold
comes.
on. Wait. Let me just get this. Let me get this ready. Queued up.
Well, you can't boo it. They're all great players.
I can toilet it, though. All right.
But we can.
Yeah, go for it. I'm
So
ready.
your,
Make it
so
a
your
hot
5
take.
was Kobe.
Here
Your
comes
4,
my hot takes.
Wait. Yeah, your
Who's
5
your-
was
who's your
Kobe.
4?
4 was
Magic.
Magic. 3 is.
Okay.
3 is Magic's counterpart, Larry Bird.
I won't give you the toilet bowl for that. I thought it was gonna be like Vince Carter or something like that's what I was
No,
expecting.
come on,
something
man.
like that. Now break because Larry was
In many ways,
So this-
I think
Larry
This is
just
a-
missed my list.
I think
this-
Larry might be better
This
than
is
Magic.
this is almost like a 4A and B between Larry and Magic. And their entire careers they've been compared to each other. And I put him slightly ahead. Maybe because I feel like he's possibly one of the most underrated players of all time.
Why is that? Why do you? I don't think so.
I think
I don't think so.
partially.
I think
just a little
Larry
bit.
gets a lot of credit.
I just think
Maybe because people always put Magic over
right,
him.
and I just think people kind
Do
of
they though? Do they?
I think
yeah
so.
yeah. I think
Most people, I've never met somebody that just easily puts Larry over Magic.
Oh, I
it's,
have.
It's either
I have.
It's either a debate or
Yeah.
they just say Magic.
And I just think what is incredible is how good of a player he was. He's the same as Magic, where he almost averaged a double-double. His career is 24, 10, and 6. And he also almost basically averaged 50, 40, 90 for his career, which for the listeners that don't know, that's 50% from the field, 40% from three-point line, and 90% from the free throw line. He's very close to hitting all those numbers.
Nobody was shooting threes really until
Right.
Larry came in.
And he didn't even shoot that many threes. If he was in today's era,
Oh man,
his numbers would be boosted even more.
And talk about play. I mean, there's always going to be iconic moments with all these guys that we break down, and I think that plays a role in where we place them in this list. Just iconic moments, like we said, Kobe's 60-point game when he let his last game of his career. Larry played a game strictly left-handed, his offhand.
Because he decided to show you that he can play left-handed and
that
beat you.
that also rolls into why he's maybe the greatest trash talker of all time.
That's another thing too.
He just told them I'm gonna play this game with left hand.
Yeah, and I'm
and
going
he
to beat
scored
you
over
doing
20.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. He only missed the All-Star once in 88 and 89.
How many years did he play?
Jeez.
was it just 9 or 10?
He didn't play that
11.
very long.
It
He only
says
played 11
played
seasons.
11 seasons.
Uh,
His back just failed.
No,
Yeah.
he played 13 seasons.
13.
Yeah. Because he has
Well, I
12
played 79 to 91.
because he has 12 All-Star appearances and he missed
Oh,
one.
Okay.
And that's because of the tail end of his career, he was injury riddled.
Yeah.
So that's like the one thing that hurts him is from 88 to him retiring in 91 and 92. He only played 6 games in 88 and 89, 75 in 89, 90, 60 in 90, 91, and 45 games in 91, 92. So he's another one of those guys, like the tail end of his career tailed off in the bad way, sort of. But
He
this
didn't
guy
go
was
out on his own terms,
right. He was 3-time All Defensive Team. I mean,
which is shocking to some people too.
right,
Some people don't realize he was actually a very good defender.
Yeah, and he's a lot more athletic than people give him credit for. He's not the most athletic guy out there, but he could hang with some people. And
He
he's
didn't
the same
need
as
to be
Magic.
athletic, though.
He almost averaged 2 threes a game. But yeah, his style of play is so intriguing to me, and it's very interesting to see. And I just love the way that he plays and the way that he would go about his business. So kind of controversial, but he's number 3 for me.
I wouldn't say I was honestly when we were
Oh,
coming.
also forgot. Sorry, he's a 3-time NBA champ. 2 of those times he was Finals MVP, and he was 3 times MVP in the league when he was going back with Magic, when he won 3 and Magic won 3.
Yeah,
So that was pretty cool.
and for 2 glorious years, those Detroit Pistons
To end the
reign
80s.
supreme. But I was before we came into the studio. For people that don't know what happens behind the scenes, Joey was kind of like briefing us on what he had prepared, and he's like, "There's going to be a really controversial pick at number 3," and I was expecting like an Allen Iverson, a Shaquille O'Neal, or not. Larry Bird is actually respectable. I can respect that.
I just feel like it was a little controversial just because of like in this kind of when you're picking your top 5 greatest players of all time, that is so difficult to do, and I think that's where I think that I'm saying that Larry sometimes gets overlooked because people will put the guys like Kareem and they'll think of Magic and Kobe, and it gets hard. Like your top 5 is hard.
But there is a valid point to be made that Larry didn't play very much. Like, yes, he played 13 seasons, but you counted out the games he played in those 13. One year he played 6 games.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Huge.
That's what I take into account is when he played, when they're healthy, and as long as they had a good enough career. Like if it was like a Brandon Roy and like he plays outstanding and he's in for the couple years and then he's gone and he's disappeared. That can't be the greatest of all time. But Larry had a good chunk of his career where he was healthy and playing.
Larry and Magic were the 80s.
Right.
That
so that's why
was theirs.
That goes into my eras of those two guys holding down the 80s.
All right. Malik, number 3.
My number 3 was born in French Lick, Indiana. He went to Indiana State. He was a Sycamore in college.
Oh, was he?
he was a Sycamore.
Yeah.
Played in the national championship against a dude named Magic Johnson.
Oh, wow.
Lost, unfortunately. But guess what he did?
What did he do?
He came right back as a Boston Celtic. Handled his business, won a championship in his first year in the NBA. He is Larry Legend. He is Larry Bird.
Let's go.
Did you guys have this planned out?
No, we did not. No, we did not.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Larry Bird.
You're picking. Wait, so you're a Lakers fan too. You were a Lakers fan.
Yes.
And you're picking Larry over Magic.
I have to. The more I think about it, and what
I need to hear
Joey said.
Before what Joey said, though, you didn't hear what Joey said before you walked into the studio today.
Yeah.
So I want to know, as Malik Hill is writing down his list, what put Larry over the top?
Because you compare Magic and Larry all the time. They have to be compared because, like I said, they were the 80s. I had to put Kareem on the list because of how his, like you said, his numbers and all-time score. Kobe's my favorite player all time, and he may be the greatest Laker of all time. Larry Bird was just as good as Magic Johnson and did other things even better.
What did he do better?
If Magic's the 1A passing, Larry is the 1B. Larry was a better scorer, in my opinion, a better pure scorer. He was one of the first great three-point shooters. He was an underrated defender. I think he's one of the few players you can classify as one of the hardest workers of all time and a flashy player at the same time. Larry, literally, he wore his back out because of how hard he worked, and he only played that short amount of time in the NBA because of his body failed him, because he would jump anywhere. He would do anything to keep a ball in bounds. He would fight people for his teammates. He would do anything to get a win. He was scrappy. He was what Boston wanted in a player. But then you look, you watch the highlights, and you watch his flashy passes. You see the behind-the-back passes on the baseline. You see the behind-the-backs. You see just the wizardry Larry used to put on in Boston and going against other teams. Then you put in the trash talking. He would tell players where he would score and then do it. He told Julius Erving, "You're getting too old for this game, and I'm tearing you up." And Julius Erving literally fought him because Larry said, "You're getting too old, and I'm killing you right now." Just when he put up 60 in Atlanta, and the Atlanta bench was going crazy.
Yeah,
like
I remember that.
Larry, man, it's just greatness.
Now,
everything he did was greatness.
Quick sidetrack here, Larry. No, I think you said Larry's the best trash talker of all time. You said
or he's top 3.
Who are your top 3 best trash talkers in NBA history?
My top 3. I'm sure there are a lot of players,
but off the top of your head,
I only know about the most well-known trash talkers.
Off the top of your head, who are your top 3?
So I'm gonna go Larry. I'm gonna put Larry at 1. 2. I'll say Michael at 2 because of how great he was and how he just used to mentally crush people. And because I know so much about what Reggie Miller used to do, I'll put Reggie at 3.
Yeah, I agree with that.
With Gary Payton very close, but Gary used
Gary's
to just
up there too.
talk all game.
Yeah, Gary.
He was annoying.
He was one of the greatest annoyances in NBA
Yeah.
history. We could do a show on Gary Payton. That guy was that guy was
Yeah.
something. I'm surprised, but I'm not shocked. I think it's the best way to describe it.
He also has the stats to back it up. by the
Especially,
way.
I'm more surprised with Malik's pick of Larry over Magic than I am Joey.
Yeah.
Especially coming from his previous Laker bias.
Every time I watch Larry's highlights or a game of his, it blows my mind watching him. He was so much more advanced to thinking of basketball than everybody else in the league except for Magic. Them two were the only people that thought about basketball the ways they did. They thought plays ahead.
Yeah.
Nobody could see the game like they could.
Let's jump into what's important here.
Oh boy.
My number 3.
Ooh, what's
Well,
important?
From taking into account everything else you said, I think your number 3 is pretty predictable at
You're
this
right.
point.
It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We talked about Kareem for a good 20 minutes, so I'm not gonna go into it too much. But to me, it comes down to that list long of accolades that
Yeah.
I talked about for a good minute. The dude just put up numbers. He's the all-time leader in points in NBA history, a 6-time MVP. I understand the debate when it comes to he played against lesser talents in this era and whatever. Well, he played through 2 eras. He played through the 70s. He played through the 80s. He won in both. I think Milwaukee, he was the leader. He was the leader by far.
I can't agree with that.
You don't agree with
Oscar
that?
Robertson was the leader
Yeah.
of that team.
You think Oscar was more important to that team than
When you have a guy that
Kareem?
the first guy to average a triple-double back in that
Come,
day.
wait.
Listen,
That means nothing according to you saying
I'm talking
triple
about-
doubles is an empty statistic taken.
No, I'm saying this day and I said if you remember this day and age, triple-doubles are an empty stat because of the
Yeah.
high volume of shooting and everything. Back then, it wasn't that way. For him to get a triple-double back then
yeah, I have to agree.
was more insane. To average a triple-double.
And when Lou Alcindor got to the Bucks, he was Lou Alcindor and a young guy that was.
He was not better than Kareem
Although he was
Abdul-Jabbar.
dominant, he was figuring out the game.
He was
But
not better Kareem
Oscar was,
Abdul-Jabbar.
He wasn't better, but he was the leader of that team, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. Oscar was the guy in Milwaukee. Kareem was great, but Oscar was the guy.
I disagree. But say what you got to say, Malik.
Oscar was the guy.
But I disagree with it. Triple doubles is more important back then than today because regardless, there were still high volume shots being taken back then.
Not nowhere near what it is today.
Yes, yeah.
Triple
It's not
doubles
like it was today.
Triple doubles back in the day were almost unheard of for a long time.
Not really when Oscar did it back in the day.
And he was the only one for a long time.
Yeah, until Russell came around.
Plus, he didn't have the unbelievable athletic advantage like Wilt and Bill Russell had.
And teams weren't running and
Oscar
gunning
was
like they
Oscar
do nowadays.
was 6'3", 6'4", the same height as some other two guards and small forwards in the league.
And nowadays you want to run the floor, so you let your point guard get the rebound to go run up the floor. Back then, big guys were still battling for rebounds.
Kareem didn't care about rebounds. He cared about points.
Which
You're
is
not
why
helping
he's off-
yourself, Chris.
Which is why he's off my top 5.
I just to me, I think Kareem was. If you take Kareem, if you take Oscar away too, they're not winning anything. It's a toss up.
I don't know though. That Bucks team had
I
some
think
of the
you have-
greatest players in the 70s on that team.
I think you have a better chance of winning if you have to take one player off that team and you take Oscar off. Your team has a better chance of winning with Kareem, especially back then when
Perhaps.
big guys were actually the center of a franchise.
I could maybe agree with that just because Oscar wasn't a big time scorer necessarily.
And now I'm not saying
But I don't know. It's hard to say.
it's a debate to be had, which Malik probably got the better of there. Now, we've all gone through our top 3 here. We've all left off 2 interesting names to be said. So I want to jump into, instead of going who's our number 2, tell me your number 1. Who is your greatest player of all time? And we'll dissect why you chose them over the other. Now I'm going to start with you, Joe. Who is your greatest player in NBA history?
Well, we're about to dive into the old ESPN argument of who's better, LeBron or Michael. I'm going to spoil it for everybody.
I'm honestly getting tired of this argument.
I am
honestly.
too.
Because-
All right, let's just stop the show.
But it's fun at times.
Yeah.
But I have to put Michael at number one.
Was it close?
Sort of.
So not really.
Yeah. And it's not
really.
And it's not because of my hate towards LeBron. It's honestly not that. Like I
think the hate powers more. Like shows how good LeBron really is when it comes to your hate.
The hate is a factor.
I can
It's
throw
a factor.
I can throw that out though to where I can honestly look at things and debate. A lot of people will say, okay, well, LeBron has a lot better stats overall, like his points, rebounds, and assists. But I take into such account when I think of greatest player is mentality for me. And I think Michael Jordan has one of the greatest basketball mentalities that ever played, probably ever played.
He's known as one of the most competitive athletes in sports history.
Him and Kobe are probably 1 and 2 in just that killer instinct, love for the game. They are going to do everything in their power to like just eat away at you and make you feel almost terrible about yourself.
Yeah.
And just beat you down to a pulp. LeBron's not that guy. And that's okay.
He does it in different ways.
And that's okay. But that's not, for me, that's not the greatest player, is when he plays this, he's getting better at it. And so much of his early career, he had struggles with the fourth quarter. And
He was mentally weak
big
for a
time,
long time.
big time plays. LeBron really struggled with that kind of thing. And I think it's because he always had to go after Michael. And I think that plays in part to it, which is unfortunate. But Michael he wouldn't care. He's going for the win. He's going to do it. He's going to put it on his back. LeBron just, for me, doesn't do that.
Now,
I respect making the smart decision, and that's what LeBron only cares about, making the best basketball decision. But there are times when you just need to take over when you're that great.
and I think LeBron has come to terms with that.
Oh, he's definitely got more clutch. The way he played in the playoffs this year was phenomenal.
He's definitely improved.
And I'll bring up this argument too. LeBron, how old was he last year? Like 30, 32,
Is he 30?
33?
Is he 33 now? Or
I think he's
34?
33. I think last year he played at
Okay.
33. I mean, we're probably wrong, but let's say he was 33 years old. With what he did there was no help on that Cleveland team this year.
There was help on that.
Yeah,
Cleveland team.
I always disagree with that.
People always over exaggerate. There was
Yeah.
no help.
Kevin
Kevin Love
Love
averaged
is it.
20 a game. Those
This past
playoffs.
year, he didn't.
In those playoffs, he
I'm
averaged
LeBron-
20 a game.
talking about collectively all year.
LeBron had no help in 2007. This year,
He had Larry Hughes, Boobie Gibson,
Stop it. Stop. Don't try that
Eric
argument.
Snow, Zadrunas Ilgauskas,
his team was
I'm
better
a
than
huge
that.
Danielle
I'm
Marshall,
a huge Big Z fan, but you're killing yourself.
Anderson Varejao.
You're killing yourself with Eric. With
Drew
Eric
Gooden?
Why he's still listing players.
I don't know. He's
The
only
fact,
hurting himself.
that I can list the whole 2007 Cleveland Cavalier roster is hilarious.
Problem.
They hold
That's
a special.
problem.
Well, they hold a special.
Shannon
feature.
Brown.
I can't believe Shannon was that.
Shannon
was on that
Brown.
team. Yeah, he was on that team.
Oh.
I missed the Delonte West Cleveland
Ira
Cavaliers.
Newble. People forget Ira Newble.
Yeah, because he was
Because
terrible.
he didn't play.
Yeah. But I don't think, honestly, I don't think Michael could have done a better job than what LeBron did with the team he had last year. I don't.
I think with that specific team, you need a guy like LeBron.
Okay, let me rephrase. With a team
With
that
specific
talented,
team.
with a team with that amount of talent, I think LeBron has better success than Michael. I do. He played against the greatest team of all time in the NBA Finals, got swept. They should have won one game if it wasn't for an idiotic move by one of his teammates.
That he picked himself. Let's be fair. He picked his teammate.
I mean, he's the greatest GM player combination there is. But
I'll agree with you.
I'll
agree with you.
It'll be interesting to see. The biggest thing to me when it comes to the LeBron MJ comparison is LeBron still has probably a good 4 years left of his career before he starts to tail off. I think LeBron has a has had so much success over maybe the longest period of time in NBA history among its greatest players of all time. And I think that's still going to last for at least another 3 years. I think his fourth year with the Lakers, maybe we'll see LeBron come down to that like 23 points per game. But this dude, I don't know, man.
If Michael never
But back to
retired,
Michael.
if Michael never retired, this argument wouldn't be close.
Oh, not at all.
And that's his own doing. But
yeah.
He had to retire. Oh, you're talking. No, you didn't. You're right.
No,
Sorry, I was thinking
didn't
about.
have to.
I was thinking about when he came back with the Wizards.
no, yeah.
I was like, the dude's 40. He's got to retire.
Well, even when he played with the Wizards, he was okay.
He was solid.
He still put up 50-point games with the Wizards.
But
Let's not disrespect
He
him.
took a lot of shots though.
His early
did.
retirements,
He did.
definitely ruined his career. And you're ruining the greatest of all time.
Exactly.
But that's what I'm just saying. That goes into account. Like, that's how great he was, is that he ruined his career by retiring early and coming back and retiring and coming back. And it's just shenanigans. But his numbers could have been so much better.
Not to mention him playing for the Birmingham Barons in the middle of his prime.
Yeah, that was rough.
And then he comes back the next year, plays like 10 games in the regular season, and then they go on to win the NBA championship.
Right. And this guy, he started his career back having to play Larry and Magic in the 80s, one of the greatest eras, like we talk about. Now, he didn't dominate entirely, at least championship-wise, until the 90s.
Yeah, but the numbers?
But the numbers in the 80s
37 a game in 1988.
were insane because he was
highest
trying to
scoring
keep up
average in
with
NBA
these
history.
guys.
And when it comes, for me too, when people talk about Michael couldn't do what LeBron's doing because he played in a different era, it was an easier era of
It
basketball.
was not.
Well, first of all, it's a different era of
Exactly.
basketball.
Right.
It was just a different era.
If Michael played in the hand check rule NBA that there is today, he probably would have a couple 40 point per game seasons under his belt.
Michael he'd be almost a god. in
Imagine
this
how many
game.
times
you
he
can't
would
touch
be
him.
Imagine how many times he'd be at the free throw line.
Can you imagine how many players he get just thrown out of the game just by mentally breaking them?
Now,
Michael would destroy some players today because they wouldn't be able to mentally take.
I think
Yeah.
Michael would get a lot more texts.
Probably. The other thing too that I take into account is how great of a defender that Michael was as well.
Over 10 times all first team defense.
And he's also the guy that would say, "Hey, I'm going to go and lock this guy down." Similar to Kobe.
9-time all defense.
Okay, 9-time? Okay.
Similar to Kobe. And I think
The Tony Kukoc story tells you everything.
although LeBron has made how many all defensive teams has LeBron made? 6. LeBron doesn't come out as that defensive guy to me.
LeBron doesn't
He's
when
had
he has to.
He's had a couple years where he's made it a point
Yeah.
to be one of the best defenders in the NBA, but also there's been years like last year. I mean, until the playoffs start,
I'm not playing defense.
He's not playing. He's
Yeah,
not wasting
right.
that energy.
And there's times where it's like, okay, you have Kevin Durant on the other side of you, and you want to try to prove you're the best player in the league, and Kevin Durant's somewhat proving you
Yeah.
wrong right now. That's where Michael would have stepped up and said, "Hey, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to lock you down. I'm going to shut you down. You're mine." And LeBron just doesn't have that. That goes into that mentality thing for me, and that's where I put LeBron down a little bit.
Now we're gonna keep going on with this debate because LeBron
Right.
and Michael are all in all of our top 2.
Right.
But I want to get Malik's. Malik, who is your greatest player of all time? Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron James?
Our greatest player of all time is Michael. And I wouldn't say it's by a long shot, but it's by a good distance. When LeBron retires, it's still going to be hard for me to put him ahead of MJ because, in my opinion, Michael Jordan has the closest thing to a perfect NBA career that we'll ever see. His career is almost perfect. And there are many players that can, on the court, he's already one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But then you just look at the accolades in the career. 6 of 6 in the finals. 6 finals MVPs. 6 finals MVPs. You average 37 a game. That's the highest average for a season.
Besides Wilt.
Yeah, besides in the modern era, that's the highest average.
Right.
There's the all-time. I mean, the first team defense is the mentality, the clutch factor. Then you add in stuff like the dunk contest where he pretty much revolutionized.
That should be a big factor. LeBron being scared of the All-Star weekend.
Before Vince Carter, Michael Jordan was the person that revolutionized the dunk contest. Him and Dominique Wilkins, people tuned in for every All-Star Saturday just to see those battles between him and Dominique for 3 years, I think. And his competitiveness raised him to a level where dunking meant that much.
Okay, let's calm down with the dunking should be part of his resume when it comes to the greatest
he
player
was
of all
scared.
time.
You can't deny that he was scared.
All-Star Weekend is a part of the NBA. It's a part of NBA history.
It doesn't count for wins towards an NBA.
It doesn't.
People debate a lot about why the dunk contest has been so bad.
The popularity of basketball was raised to another level because of what him and Dominique did in those contests, and how Jordan raised his competitiveness even more.
I could see LeBron doing a dunk contest maybe this year, just because he's back in LA.
I remember when he said he was going to do it.
Yeah,
and then
he
didn't
said
do
it
it the
multiple
next
times.
year.
What was it? What did he say? He was going to do it like in 2010 or something? I can't remember.
It was one of those years when he told Reggie Miller, "I'm putting my name in next year's dunk contest."
Oh, I think it was like
everybody went crazy.
No, I remember what it was. He said it in 2000. It was the 09-10 season, his last year in Cleveland. He said that, and then his reasoning behind not doing it the following years because of all the hate, and he wanted to focus on his team because it was his first year in Miami.
Excuses. That's a mentality thing. It's another mentality thing. I'm telling you.
That's the biggest reason why most people put Michael ahead of him nowadays that I hear, because of the mentality that LeBron doesn't, even though he has the numbers and he's one of the greatest players.
Well, I'll
of
tell
all
you
time,
what,
his mentality does not match what Michael or even like Kobe could do.
To me, it comes to the perfect NBA Finals record, and that's why Michael's number one for me. Just barely. It's closer than I think. For me, it's closer.
That's why I said he has the closest thing to a perfect career, and nobody's gotten close to that yet.
Right, and I agree with that.
But I would argue LeBron has faced way tougher Finals competition than Michael.
He has, but it's also like you said, it's just the eras.
It's just an unlucky draw.
Different times of basketball.
You put LeBron against Karl Malone and John Stockton, I guarantee you LeBron wins both championships.
At that time, Michael was playing against the best competition in the NBA.
Exactly. No,
he was playing
agree.
against
I know.
some of the best teams of the 90s, but of course when you compare now to then,
these
athletes
and that's
are on
why
a different
that's
level.
why you saw Michael struggle in the 80s, because he had to go against Magic and Larry
and then
and the Bad Boys.
Once he got to the Bad Boys, they just beat him up for two or 3 years, and he had to figure out a way to get past them.
Well, how Michael got past Detroit is Detroit got old.
Yeah.
Old and injured.
But also, him and Scotty continued to raise their game every
They had
year.
Scotty in a body bag. No one was worried about
Not
Scottie
the year they
Pippen.
finally got past Detroit. But yeah, at first they completely were killing Scotty.
That's one of my favorite. Like one of my favorite stories, is like they actually kind of concussed Scottie Pippen in that what I think was the Eastern Conference Finals or semis in '89
Can't remember.
or '90. But Scotty was like he's having migraines. He could barely play
because
in
of the
game
migraines.
six.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to this day. It's like that just shows you how brutal that team was. I like how it doesn't matter if there's no Pistons in here. I'm gonna bring them up regardless.
Well, they're
Then,
part of the era.
If you wanted to compare eras, I don't think LeBron could handle the Bad Boys. There's no way he could be able to handle getting beat up like that for 2
Or
years.
the Celtics.
He couldn't do it.
You have to go through the Celtics.
I'm not
and
worried
the
about the
Pistons.
Honestly,
The
I
Celtics
think
were the same as the Pistons, though. They were pretty rugged dudes.
they were rugged because Detroit got rugged with them.
I
and
know,
they gave
but
them
I'm
an
just
edge.
saying, like, I don't know if LeBron's mentality works in that era.
My favorite thing is Robert Parrish throws just 2 punches at Bill Laimbeer, doesn't get thrown out, doesn't get a tech,
Yep.
just gets issued for a foul. Like that just shows you the two different eras.
At that time, all it took was mentally breaking down just a little bit, and you were done. That's all it took. And until about 2012, I mean, you saw the finals, the 10-11 finals.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest mental breakdowns in sports history, let alone basketball.
But that's a cop out to me because don't get me wrong, LeBron didn't play well. Yeah, he played terrible. But Dirk Nowitzki took over that series.
All-time
People
great
don't give Dallas credit for that
They don't.
2010,
I agree.
2011. They say, "Oh, LeBron just wasn't him, so that's why they lost."
Dirk
no,
was on a
Dallas.
different level.
Would you guys agree with me that Dallas won that championship?
Dallas was the better team.
They were the better
Dallas
team.
was the better team,
Right.
yes.
But that just goes into that
The
account
way
of,
Joey
like,
says, right?
that just goes into the idea of like LeBron had this well-made team that he he couldn't get over the hump. Now, it was his first year. And like you said, the Mavericks were
The bench
definitely
was kind of trash too.
the Mavericks were definitely underrated. But that just plays into account. And I don't know. It's hard. Because that team, people give a lot of flack because the way that it was done, and it was a built-up team. I don't like it. I didn't like the way they went about it, and that's a part of a downgrade for me is the way. And that was when LeBron was kind of going through his like mid-career crisis kind of
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
I felt like where he was trying to get out of Cleveland to go win some rings, and it didn't work out the first year.
Now,
Older players also knocked down LeBron a bit because he went to Miami. Personally, I don't, but many all-time great players have come out with quotes saying there's no way they would have went to team up with other players. That's just a little point.
Now, I think 4 years from now, or 5 years from now, or even 6 years from now, when LeBron decides to call it quits, people need to revisit this. Maybe give it a year after he's called it quits and revisit the conversation of who is actually the greatest of all time. Because I think LeBron will have a solid chance. I think they're going to be neck and neck by the time LeBron's career is over.
I think LeBron might call it quits earlier than we expect.
I think he wants to play with his son. I think he wants to play with his. He signed a 4-year deal, so he's already going to play into his 20th season.
It's hard to say though. He wants to, yes, but if some sort of health issue,
LeBron is superhuman.
We say that, but you just never know.
I think by the time that
if he's injured this year, I blame Joe.
By the time his contract is up in LA, I think his mind will be strictly towards everything else he's doing in life. He's already a producer on a TV show.
No,
He's doing movies. He has a school. I think by the time that contract is up, he will be in full life after basketball mental mode.
I'm telling you, by the time that contract is up, wherever Bronny James, his son, gets drafted, LeBron is headed that way for at least 1 year.
Just for 1 year.
Just think about it, because you bring about all his future endeavors. What a story that would be. A father-son combination playing professional basketball. That's something beyond basketball that LeBron and his media camp just salivate for. So that's something that I think is definitely in the possibilities of happening down the road.
That's assuming Bronny is a one-and-done college player.
Yeah. Which he
could
come out of high school. He can come out of high school.
That's a big assumption.
I think it'll happen. I'm telling you. That's my hot take for the day, but
Bronny's
that's
gonna
it,
come
guys.
out of high school.
That's it, guys. That's the show right there. Number 1, Michael Jordan, greatest player of all time. 2, LeBron. 3, by consensus, Larry. 4,
Did you ever say Michael was your number 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, I never.
He
I
said
don't remember him
slid it in
saying
there.
Because the 6 out of 6 championships.
But, we'll get into it more next week. We might need another themed episode next week.
Yeah, we're not really sure yet. We'll figure it out.
We play it by ear, but we'll see you guys next time.
This was a good show.
It was a good show.
I enjoyed it.
I thought I'm a little bummed it wasn't Vince Carter at 3 for Joey.
Come on.
He didn't slide Dirk and Vince in there.
I thought when he said that my 3rd is controversial, but
If only Sebastian Telfair was my real 5.
that would have been awesome.
LeBron's not winning another championship. Saying it here right now.
Yeah, because KD and the super team. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Joey, cue the cool music.
Edit.